Good morning.
Good morning.
Today we celebrate Buddha's Enlightenment Day. In East Asian Buddhist countries, we celebrate Buddha's Enlightenment on December 8th. But here we celebrate Buddha's Enlightenment in the closest Sunday from December 8th, and that is today. Actually, this year, December 8th was Sunday, but that was the last day of Rohatsu Shin, so we couldn't do the ceremony. Anyway, so on this occasion, each year I give a talk about Buddha's enlightenment. What is enlightenment? And before he became enlightened, he was not a Buddha. So this something happened to him on that occasion. He became a Buddha, and Buddha means one who has awakening or awakened one. So what is awakening? Is the pivotal point of his life. Before that, he was called Bodhisattva. That means the person who is seeking awakening. Bodhi means awakening, and Sattva means being. So Bodhisattva means person who is seeking awakening. And on December 8th, when he was sitting at the under the Bodhi tree, he had awakening, and after that he became awakened one. That means, and that is what Buddha means. So, what is his awakening? What he experienced under the Bodhi tree was a very important point in Buddhism, I think. That's why we celebrate even 2,500 years later, we still celebrate his enlightenment. But what was his enlightenment or awakening is not so clear. So we have to study what was his enlightenment from his later teachings. What was difference? What the difference in Buddha's life before and after? And of course, later, probably after Buddha's death, many Buddhists kind of imagine what he experienced, and they made stories about Buddha's awakening or enlightenment. So each year I introduce certain texts about Buddha's enlightenment. And today I'd like to introduce one very short sutta from Pali Nikaya. This sutta is called Samyutta Nikaya. And here he didn't directly talk about his experience, but he talks the difference before and after his enlightenment. And to me, this is interesting. And this short sutta is quoted in this book, The Life of the Buddha. This is a collection of what Buddha said about his life from the very different parts of Pali Nikaya. And it might be interesting to understand what Buddha talked about his life in various Nikaya. Anyway, this is a part of the Samyutta Nikaya, and the title of this sutta is about 5 skandhas. In the state said, first Buddha said, before my enlightenment, he said, before my enlightenment, while I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva. Bodhisattva was a Pali word for bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is Sanskrit, and bodhisattva was Pali. So he was a bodhisattva, but he was not enlightened yet. I thought, in the case of material form of feeling, of pleasure, pain, or neither, what the danger, what the escape? Then I thought, in the case of each, the bodily pleasure and mental joy that arise in dependence on these things, the five aggregates, are the gratification. The fact that these things are all impermanent, painful, and subject to change is the danger. The disciplining and abandoning of desire and lust for them is the escape. That was what he thought before he was enlightened. And he continued, as long as I did not know by direct knowledge, as it actually is, that such was the gratification, such the danger, and such the escape. In the case of these five aggregates affected by clinging, so long did I make no claim to have discovered the enlightenment that is supreme in the world, with its deities, its Maras, and its Brahma divinities in this generation, with its monks and Brahmans, with its princes and men. But as soon as I knew by direct knowledge, as it actually is, that such is the gratification, such the danger, and such the escape. In the case of these five aggregates affected by clinging, then I claimed to have discovered the enlightenment that is supreme in the world, with its deities, its Maras, and its Brahma divinities in this generation, with its monks and Brahmans, with its princes and men. This is the end of this, very short. And he's talking about what the difference between between the time he was unenlightened and he was enlightened. And he talks about the five skandhas. He said, five aggregates affected by clinging. Five aggregated affected by clinging is in Chinese and Japanese a translation that is called Shu Un. Go is five, and Un is aggregate, and Shu is clinging or attachment. Five skandhas, I think you know, rupa, or in English form, in Chinese, shiki. And second is ju, third is so, fourth is Gyo, and the fifth is Shiki. Ju, So, Gyo, Shiki. And in English, Ju is a feeling or sensation. And So is perception. Gyo is translated as formation. And Shiki is consciousness. In Buddhism, it is said our life consists of those five aggregate or five elements. And within these five, the first one, rupa, is material. And other four is a function of our mind. So five aggregate actually means our body and mind. And our body and mind are the object of clinging. We cling to our body and mind. We attach ourselves to this body and mind. And not only the object of clinging, but our body and mind is also subject, which cling to five aggregates. So both subject and object are five aggregate. There's no such things beside or outside of five skandhas that cling to five skandhas. And if there is such a thing, that thing is called Atman. Atman is an owner and the operator of these five skandhas. But the Buddha said there's no such owner and operator of five skandhas. Only five skandhas are there. So five skandhas cling to five skandhas. That is how we live. And first, before he was enlightened, he thought, in this sutta, he said, before my enlightenment, while I was still only an enlightened bodhisattva, I thought, in the case of five skandhas, material forms and of feeling, of perception, of formations, of consciousness, that is what is the gratification, and what the danger, and what the escape. So before he was enlightened, he said, we need to understand what is the gratification of five skandhas, and what is the danger of five skandhas, and what is the escape from five skandhas. So five skandhas is a problem. That means our body and mind is a problem. And he said, in the case of each, the bodily pleasure and mental joy, sometimes we have joyful material bodily pleasure. Sometimes we feel, pleasure when we encounter some object which give us a pleasant sensation. We have a bodily pleasure. And sometimes we have mental joy when our desire is fulfilled. So there is a gratification or joy or pleasure within five skandhas. That's why we cling to these five skandhas, our body and mind. But he said we need to understand the danger of seeking the bodily pleasure and mental joy. And that he said, In the case of each, the bodily pleasure and mental joy that arise in dependence on these things, means five aggregate, those pleasure and joy are dependent on our body and mind. That is a condition of our body and mind. And he said there is a gratification or joy and pleasure, actually. But we need to understand the fact that these things are all impermanent and painful and subject to change. Subject to change and impermanence, the same thing. But it's kind of difficult to understand when Buddha said these, joy and pleasure are painful. But probably this means because it's change, it doesn't last forever. And also, when we have some joy and pleasure, we need or we want more, and there's no end in the seeking of more or better or greater pleasure and joy. That is a painful way of life. And that is what hungry ghost means. We want more and more, and there's no satisfaction. So as far as we are living, chasing after, bodily pleasure and mental joy, our life is no end. We cannot find no peaceful foundation of our life. And that way of life is painful as like a transmigration within samsara. We are always up and down. So we need to understand the danger of this way of life. And he said we need to escape. I'm not sure this word escape is, English word escape is the right word, but another possible English word is like departure or liberation or being free from that way of life, seeking after satisfaction. So that disciplining practice and abandoning of desire and lust for them, for those five skandhas, is the escape or liberation. That was what he thought when before he was awakened. And he said, even though he thought that was what he was looking for, that means escape from this way of life. But unless he really knew with the direct knowledge, he didn't said he was enlightened. So what he is saying here is when he knew this with direct knowledge means direct experience. That means he was really escaped, or his escape or freedom was completed from this way of life, chasing after bodily pleasure and mental joy. He said he was enlightened, or he completed his practice of seeking enlightenment. So to me, this is very interesting. What Buddha thought before he was enlightened. I mean, when he was young, he was born as a prince in a small kingdom in Nepal. And within that community, he was, the son of a king. So his future was promised that he will be the king. And according to his biography, when he was born, some religious person, old person came and looked at the baby and gave prediction that he will be a great spiritual teacher if he left his family, his palace. That means he didn't become a king. He will be a great spiritual teacher. But if he stayed at home at his palace and took over his father's position, then he will be a really great king. So Buddha's Shakyamuni's father wanted to him stay and took over his position. So he gave everything the boy, his son, wanted to always satisfy his desires. Then he could be happy, and he would like to stay at home and take over his position. So Buddha provide everything that his son might be liked. So Buddha himself said about his young life while he was stayed with his father. And Buddha said like this, that was how he was raised. He said, by himself, he said, I was delicate, excessively delicate. In my father's dwelling, there, 3 lotus ponds were made purposely for me. Blue lotuses bloomed in one, red in another, and white in another. So his dwelling was very beautiful with 3 different lotus ponds. I used no sandalwood that was not of Kasi. Kasi was a famous place that produced good sandalwood. And my turban, tunic, dress, and cloak were all from Kasi. It's like a made in United States or made in Paris or somewhere like that, or made in Japan. That means very, expensive and in good quality. Night and day, a white parasol was held over me so that I might not be touched by heat or cold, dust, leaves, or dew. So it seems he was like heating and air conditioning. And he was completely protected from the difficulties. There were 3 palaces for me, one for the cold season, one for the hot season, and one for the rainy season. During the 4 rainy months, I lived in the palace for the rainy season without ever coming down from it. Entertained while by female musicians. So that was how he was raised. And that was why he could say he had bodily pleasure and mental joy. And he was also very gifted, talented, and strong and healthy person. So he was really number 1 in his community. That was his starting point. He had a bodily pleasure and a mental joy. But in that situation, he found this is a dangerous. There is a danger to live in that way. And there was a famous story that after he became older than 20 years, I think, one day he left his palace and he saw a sick person and aged person and dead person. And finally he saw a spiritual practitioner. So he found there is opposite condition of life. That was why he but he actually left his palace and became a spiritual practitioner. But not many people could have such a bodily pleasure and mental joy. I think majority of people are, so it seems like Buddha started from joyful condition of life, but he thought, this is dangerous. So he left that way of life, and he became a spiritual practitioner. And he, after a certain period of time, he had awakening. That means he was liberated from this way of life. That was the pivotal point of his life. And he became a teacher. That means Buddha. But I think majority of people had to start much kind of more difficult conditions. They are looking for bodily pleasure and mental joy. So that was for majority of people, that was their life. To reach there, they work hard and they had struggle. And they had, many difficulties. I think that was the situation. So Buddha was very, fortunate person with fortunate conditions. And if that was how Buddha became Buddha, then what was his enlightenment or teaching could have some meaning from people who are struggling to attain physical pleasure and mental joy. If they cannot achieve or experience such a pleasure or joy. I think that is a very interesting point when we understand the meaning of Buddha's teaching. And when I read this sutta, or this sayings by Buddha, I remember what Okumura Roshi said. In this book, Opening the Hand of Thought, actually, what he said, what I remembered, was not there in the newest version. It's took out. But in this version, it's still there. And what Buddha said, what Okumura said, is about why people from America, United States, or Europe came to Japan and practiced Zazen, where at the place like Antaiji. Antaiji was very poor temple, and there's no, Antaiji had no income, So we supported our life by takas or begging. And mainly what we did was just sitting. And that was, when I was there, that was in the early 70s. We had many Westerners came from the United States or Europe, who are the people so-called hippies. They came from a very advanced, rich country. And at that time, early 70s, Japan was still a poor, relatively poor country. And Japanese people are like people in this stage working hard to make money, to become rich. But people from rich country came to, poor country like Japan, and especially poor temple advantage. Why those people came and to just sit? And they said, this doesn't has good for nothing. Why those people from rich country to the poor places and practice this kind of strange practice? And in this book, he said, Okumura Roshi said, after meeting with many of those people from the Western countries, he started to understand why those people came to a poor place like Antais and practice with this strange practice of just sitting. And what he said was not only those people, but people in the advanced rich country are like ant in the sugar bowl. The title of this section is Ants in a Sugar Bowl. That means, sugar is what all ants are looking for. And there is Okumura Roshi wrote a caricature that there is a sugar bowl full of sugar, and some ants fall into this sugar bowl. So they could eat sugar as much as they want. But somehow, even though sugar is a good thing for ants, but somehow ants didn't feel satisfaction in that situation. And he said, like, imagine a whole bunch of ants that have fallen into a bowl of sugar. They sank on the sweet stuff until their stomachs are swollen and practically transparent. Yet everything they see and hear, the whole world that surrounds them, is nothing but the same tedium of sugar. It is only natural that life in such a world is lonely and empty. Being inside this sugar bowl, there is not much else for them to do but bathe in the self-consoling intoxication of drugs or else commit suicide. So when we are in the sugar bowl, like an ant in the sugar bowl, there's nothing to seek anymore. That is not a good situation for us. And in the next paragraph, Okumura said about Japanese people at that time, in the early 70s. When I create this image of Americans and Europeans and compare them to ants fallen into a bowl of sugar, I naturally have to think about the condition of Japanese society and relate this caricature to present-day Japanese. I see them just beginning to taste fat is in the bowl. So in the early 70s, Japanese just begin to taste the sugar. They are thinking how wonderful it is to have fallen into the sugar bowl, like those in the other advanced countries. Although they are thought as of economic animals throughout the world. So Japanese people are called economic animals, working hard to make money. The Japanese themselves are rejoicing in thinking that they have become a great economic power. As a Japanese, I can only say that this situation is truly regrettable. So he thought Japanese were like an ant outside of a sugar bowl, and yet they taste a little bit of sugar, so they want to get in. I think this section was excluded in the new version because Japan was already there in 2003. So the situation was changed. Anyway, so it seems Buddha was a kind of an ant in a sugar bowl. And they found this is not a satisfactory situation. That's why he left, same as those people called hippies. He wanted to find some different way of life that is being free from the situation of our life, seeking the bodily pleasure and mental joy. And that seeking or desire for sensual pleasure and mental joy, it came from clinging or attachment to these 5 skandhas. Of course, to keep these 5 skandhas as living beings, to be alive, we need certain food and certain materials. But necessity and desire is different. Even though we have necessary things, even when we are given or provided necessary things, we still want more, or we want to be better things than others. So this desire is different from working for to gain something we need. So need or necessity and desire for more and more are different. And this desire came from attachment to our 5 skandhas. So that was what Buddha really knew, really understood when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, and he became really free from the clinging or attachment to the 5 skandhas. Later in the Buddhist philosophy, it is said Mara was what Buddha conquered under the Bodhi tree. But in Mahayana text written by Nagarjuna, it is said that Mara is 5 skandhas. These 5 skandhas is the Mara. So when Buddha conquered the Mara, it means he became free from this desire or clinging to 5 skandhas, means our body and mind. According to this saying, in the short sutta in Samyutta Nikaya, that was what Buddha actually experienced when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree. And so, after he became free from attachment, his attachment to 5 skandhas, his own body and mind, the way he found was called a middle way. That means, he started from here. He already had a bodily pleasure and mental joy, but he found there is a danger there, and he escaped from that way of life. Then what he found was called middle way. That means, in order to escape from that, clinging to 5 skandhas, first thing he tried was a meditation practice with 2 well-known teachers, but somehow he didn't find satisfaction with the practice with those 2 teachers. Then he started to practice very severe ascetic practice, to almost like a self-mortification. I think that was first he fought against his desire or attachment to 5 skandhas, his own body and mind. He ate only, it said he ate only 1 grain a day, or said he stopped breathing until he almost fainted. So he was the most experienced, how can I say, almost near this experience. And he found fighting against 5 skandhas does not pass to be free from attachment to the 5 skandhas. So he quit ascetic practice, and he received food from a girl in the village, and he stored some strength, and he bathed and cleaned his body, and he started to sit under the Bodhi tree. So he called the path he found under the Bodhi tree middle way. So middle way means the way of life, seeking the bodily pleasure and mental joy. And another extreme is called self-mortification, fighting against 5 skandhas, almost torture the 5 skandhas. That means torture ourselves, our body and mind. And he found that was not a right path, that was not meaningful or beneficial way of life. And he found the middle way, that is most healthy way of life. And he found to walk on this healthy way of life, practice 8-fold noble path. I think you know what those 8 paths mean, that, such as correct or right thinking, right view, right thinking or thought, and so on. And I don't have time to talk about each of the 8 practices. But that was what he found, and he started to walk from his time of his awakening. And when he started to teach other people who are still, before awakening. He taught the Eightfold Noble Path to the people as a medicine when people were not healthy. So Buddha's awakening has two meanings, I think. One is for him, he found a middle way for himself. And the rest of his life, he walked this healthy way of life. That is Eightfold Noble Path. But when he taught to the people who are not yet healthy, he taught the same way of life as a medicine or as a treatment. And he taught Eightfold Noble Path is a path reach the cessation of suffering. So even for the people who hasn't yet experienced